Hi, I'm Jack Berkowitz. I'm the Chief Data Officer of Securiti AI. We're a company that works in data security, data privacy, and now all about AI and generative AI governance and security. With me today is Vignesh Shetty, who's one of the senior vice presidents at GE HealthCare, involved with data. Welcome to the interview, Vignesh.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. So we always like to take care of some basic things to begin with. Tell us about your role, what you do, what wakes you up at night, what lets you sleep comfortable as well. So,
Sure. Let me start with actually what G Healthcare's role is and its mission and why it exists. Is as you probably know, Jack, the company's vision, G Healthcare, that is, which I'm part of, is to really create a world where healthcare has no limits. And in that, I view my role as one of the bridge builders across my teams and across customers that really work across the entire data and AI infrastructure. Right. So think of it like just like a physical building needs a solid foundation, we build foundational capabilities, whether that's data platforms, whether that's AI tooling, identity management, IoT, which is really the groundwork to harness the immense potential of both our data and our AI capabilities. And what we really do is we partner with our customers, both internal and external to GE, through the technology and the tools that my team builds to accelerate the build, the deploy, and the monitoring of what we call smart devices. So CTs, MRI machines, ultrasound machines, digital capabilities of the sort that we build, and entire disease state-based care solutions like think radiology, cardiology, oncology, neurology, so on and so forth.
so really fusing all that data together to give a treatment plan to not just to a doctor, but to a family,
Correct.
all of that type of things. Okay, great,
Absolutely.
fantastic. GE's been around for a long time. In fact, it's now in segments.
Yes.
And so people think of it as a historic company, but really, what can we think of in terms of your data estate, your AI platforms, and everything that you're doing today,
Mhm.
in terms of, where are you at today in terms of modernization and things like that?
Yeah, so I would say you're right. And I view G's century old legacy as something that provides us a wealth of domain knowledge and experience, almost like a master craftsman's toolbox. So even though we've just spun off as an independent company, I think we've been a beneficiary of lot of that legacy and that experience and that domain knowledge, which we carry forward. But to your specific question, Jack, on how we view our data estate, I know that, and you know this as well, that 30% of the world's data volume is generated by the healthcare industry. And actually, I think by next year, the volume grows at 36% per year. The difference, though, is for the first time, likely in recorded human history, it isn't just like a flood of raw bits that's designed to overwhelm us humans, but it's actually starting to be a treasure trove of insights that is just waiting to be unlocked. And so we view this as raw materials from which we construct intelligent systems, both hardware and software and AI based, right? And our AI platform is really that modern factory that takes those raw materials and converts them to actionable insights or products as they may be, which ultimately create values for both patients and healthcare providers at large. So that's kind of how we sort of view this.
So really, right, as your teams are changing, you really get. Let me put some words in your mouth, and you tell me if it's
Sure.
correct or not. But you're actually able to influence even the design of the systems as they're coming out now, so that and you can get the data. It's not just being on the receiving end of a loose data feed. You can actually influence how the systems are built so that you've got data in that you expect or that you want to find.
Absolutely, and I would extend that point further, Jack, because one of the potentially counterintuitive, at least it is to us, has been that historically the basic assumption on how you design to enable those data feeds, to your point, has been go break data silos, go aggregate data, create this massive central lake, warehouse, repository, pick your favorite choice of words, and then build application that take advantage of the data in ways that allow for both clinical and operational outcomes. But I think we're starting to change that and fundamentally challenge that and say that's not the only way. Forcing aggregation not the only approach. Can we instead strive to make data actionable where it lives and sort of redesign the applications that consume that data to go meet the data where it is? So physically, they don't have to be in one place. This notion of a data mesh, etc., may be something that's another way to represent that. But go make it actionable where it lives, because any company, whether that's G or they are evolving, right? Either you're acquiring, you're partnering, or you're building. So it's almost impossible to create this massive Uber lake where everything resides. So we're sort of approaching system design, data architectures in ways that reflect that new reality.
That's super interesting. Super interesting. In my most recent past, we did build a big data lake or a lake house, and we were using it to mine both sort of analytics, but also to build applications that had machine intelligence inside, whether it's Gen AI or other things.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, what we were really doing is having transactional systems, and we wanted to push the machine learning or the analytics straight to the fingertips of the users.
Right.
And we always would look at that debate. How do you architect for one or the other or both at the same time? So it's super interesting where you're going. So as you're doing that, what's something that you're like super proud of? Like what's an achievement by the team or maybe just a couple of folks on the team that, really is one of those moments that everybody says, yeah, this is worth it. Not just from the investment, but from people's, their own lives investing in this.
Absolutely. So it's a great question, and I would probably break it into two parts, Jack. In terms of achievements, I can't pick one. It's like picking between kids, so I'll cheat a bit. So I would say, from a customer standpoint, our ability to simplify workflows and drive not just efficiencies but even effectiveness, and this is leveraging the power of technology, whether that's cloud AI, Gen AI, machine learning, deep learning, to help providers and patients has been something that gives me goosebumps and gets me with the spring in my step when I come into work. I'll give you a specific example, right? Our teams have partnered to build what is known as the Air Recon DL, which is a deep learning algorithm that we've embedded into the GE MRI machines, the scanners. And what that's done is, yes, it's improved image quality compared to the past. But more importantly, I think it's reduced the amount of time it takes for an MRI scan for a lot of cases from 30 to up to 50%. And when you do that, historically, it's been a zero-sum game. You either reduce scan time and take a hit on image quality, or you increase scan time and get better images. You couldn't have your cake and eat it too until now, right? So we've been able to do that without sacrificing image quality for them, and in some cases improving it. And what that's done is it's created this massive virtuous flywheel where hospitals are happy because it increases productivity. They can treat more patients. Patients are happy. Imagine a small child who used to go through an MRI board, a narrow board for 45 minutes, or even an elderly patient who's got Alzheimer's or claustrophobic. Their experiences unimaginably better, right? And it's also allowed us to drive, because hospitals can now do more scans per day. We hope that this will ultimately drive customer affordability, because now they can sort of amortize the investment they made in these expensive machines over a larger volume and drive down the cost of healthcare. So I think there's multiple second and third order effects we just see. So that's one big bucket. This is an example on the customer side. I'm also equally proud within the company and how we've democratized the ability to build, to deploy, and to monitor AI across their entire organization. So in some ways, the teams have made it, I think, more accessible to people worldwide, regardless of their knowledge of data science, and for getting them to empowering them really to solve problems and drive impact. It's almost like giving every employee in the company a superpower where they can multiply our collective intelligence while ensuring that they're developing responsibly and in aligned with our trusted AI principles. That's kind of two things I would pick.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's an area that I'm particularly interested in and work in, is really this notion of, you want to empower lots of teams, but you want to do that in a way that they're using governed data, they're using proper methods.
Right.
It's observable by others, right?
Mhm.
Which is a very simple thing, but you and I have both run big development teams. Development teams tend to say, well, no, why are you looking at my stuff? Right. So that's amazing. And that leads into sort of my question about that, because
Mhm.
you're dealing with all this personal information, very personal information, some of the most personal information people have. So in all of that governance and all of that data mesh and everything, how do you deal with personal data, both in sort of a technology, but also in terms of a policy and an education and an awareness by all of not just the engineers, but the product managers, the salespeople, and really the distributed networks that you work in?
I think that's a great question. And I want to start by saying that I don't want to make it sound like we figured it all out. This is part of what keeps us excited, and it's work in progress. And I would admit the journey isn't without its challenges. I think you're specifically referring to how do you ensure we protect patient data,
Yep.
geo-privacy, even security, right? And I would argue that both cybersecurity and privacy of both patient data and other data, much like trust or love, cannot be bought, it must be earned. And that's kind of what we coach our teams on a regular basis, right from the time how we hire to how we groom, how we promote, and how we train. That's a key sort of a tenet around which we make those decisions. And the reason we say that is because ultimately what we need to educate our employees is that this is a shared sense of responsibility. When you build a product, right, you've got to make sure that the product has the appropriate guardrails to ensure that you balance data privacy with model training. If you're building a model, how do you do this delicate dance between balancing data privacy and model training? We of course use techniques like de-identification, data anonymization, differential privacy to ensure that we can train our AI models without compromising patient confidentiality. We also want our product managers, our sales folks, to help educate even our customers and the patient that you know in order to be able to achieve our ultimate goal of being secure and ensuring the privacy to the degree they would like it, it's a shared sense of responsibility across the hospital, the patient, and the technology provider, which is us, right? Because even if you invest in the most secure technology, that's a necessary but insufficient sort of a lever if we don't train both our employees and our customers to ensure that there's guardrails, even to protect themselves from social engineering practices like phishing and other things, which is meant to work on the human psyche, not so much, break through a technology fortress. So that's kind of how we are thinking about it. It's a multi-pronged approach, right?
Yeah, it's
Because
really that it's that
mm,
cultural change, right?
it is.
Which is what we see CDAOs needing to be, right? Whether you're going for business impact because you're in marketing, whether you're going through social benefit because you're in healthcare, whether you're, working in banking, it's really that social or that cultural change is what the teams need to enact.
Yeah, and to build on that, Jack, one of the things I would say is a key driver for frictionless AI adoption, regardless of the industry, like to your point, right, is to build trust in the systems they interact with, because that's what you want. That's the key potential, one of the key barriers. And the way we are trying to mitigate that, it's not a perfect answer, is we ask tough questions at every stage, every review. Like it's not just about the accuracy of the model, not just what the AUC curve shows. It's how are we monitoring model performance? How are we looking in validating or invalidating confirmation bias in our data and our model? And are we, where possible, mitigating it with synthetic data? Because there's even the sort data we source. I mean, this is a real problem, right? Potentially has biases depending on the source, where we source it from. Right? It may either have ethnic bias. So how do you try and, to the extent possible, get representative data and then complement that with synthetic data when it comes to training? And then how do you ensure greater sharing of data for validation from a validation standpoint? And then ensuring that any of our research, both particularly in AI, but even more broadly, emphasizes explainable, causal, and ethical AI, which I think all become key drivers for responsible adoption. Those are the things that we are starting to deliberately try and enforce and focus a lot more on than we have in the past.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you very much. I've been with Vignesh Shetty, who's Senior Vice President at GE HealthCare. My name's Jack Berkowitz. I'm the Chief Data Officer at Securiti AI. Really enjoyed our conversation and look forward to meeting up and chatting again soon. Thank you.
Likewise, it was a pleasure. And thanks for having me again, Jack.